You can probably tell.
Love it.
And we're live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Seattle, the home of Wizards of the Coast, the home of the Magic the Gathering World Championship for 2015 here at PAX. The Penny Arcade Expo is about to kick into high gear, and so are we. Rich Hagan, your host, sitting alongside from Inside R&D, Mr. Ian Duke, from the Hall of Fame, Mr. Randy Buehler, and one of your limited resources, Mr. Marshall Sutcliffe. We're going to set the stage for you here for what should be a fantastic day two, but we've already had a great day one. It was Thursday. Maybe some of you had jobs and couldn't see every second. So, what did they miss? Marshall, give us one thing that some people may have missed on day one.
I hope they didn't. It's easily my favorite memory from yesterday, which is Kentaro Yamamoto uses Snapcaster Mage. He flashes back Molten Rain against Magnus Lanto, which is kind of mean, right? Like, that's not a nice thing to do to somebody. And Magnus, with just one mana available, calmly taps it and plays Ricochet Trap, which he's able to play because there was a blue spell cast thanks to Snapcaster, and redirects it back. So Kentaro wanted to make it rain, but Magnus had a different answer for him. It was pretty great.
That's totally awesome. All right, Randy, how about you?
I'm going to go with a player. Martin Muller, 17-year-old kid. He gets into the World Championships by being the captain of the World Magic Cup winning team, which is not the most glamorous way to get invited into this tournament. They've actually done away with the invite. Word is the kid can really play, but he also came up heartbreaking 1 point short of gold. So only 34 pro points last year. He actually doesn't have invites lined up for the whole season. So it's 17-year-old kid. He's only silver, although, like I said, one heartbreaking point short of gold. Shows up, 6-1s the field. He's in first place overnight at 17 years old, and then maybe he can play, but then why is he only silver conversation? I think that conversation might be over now.
Yeah, and of course, Ian, they get points for every match that they win here, so that's a big deal. But yesterday, for you, you split your time between here at the news desk and over in the commentary box. What stood out for you?
Yeah, and while I was in the booth, we got to see the Modern Masters 2015 draft, and my favorite part was seeing Seth Manfield draft a full-on Eldrazi deck. And in round 3, we got to see him literally annihilate Yuya Watanabe with Ulamog. So apparently it takes a 10-10 indestructible Eldrazi to beat Yuya Unlimited.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting storyline because Yuya is right in the thick of things. But we need to make sure that you're all aware. If you are new to coverage, you're extremely welcome to our World Championship. Why don't we walk you through what's already happened and what's coming your way? So, Marshall, what's the schedule? What are the formats still to come here?
So yesterday we kind of dealt with the past a little, right? Modern Masters 2015, older sets, Modern itself, older sets. Today, it's the present. We're here, we're now. We're going to start things off today with Magic Origins Booster Draft. So this is current format. Players are going to have to jump in there. They're going to have to be up to speed on what the latest and greatest is in this format. Now, transitioning out of that, Standard. And Standard, of course, one of the most popular formats in Magic, and one that changes a lot, right? Week to week, you have to be up on what's going on in Standard. And having talked to a bunch of the players, they told me that Standard is actually where they focused most of their energy for testing. They thought Modern, we'll put some effort into it. We'll do some of these Modern Masters 2015 drafts. But when it came to Standard, that was the one where they really put their effort.
But Randy, that's no surprise because ultimately the winner of the trophy goes best 3 out of 5 in Standard. And that is the match that they all want to win.
Completely agree. It may look like Standard is only 1/4 of the field, but it's the Sunday format. It is the most important format. If you want to win this tournament, you have to have a good Standard deck.
All right, so that's the schedule. When they do come back on Sunday, it will be best 3 out of 5 in the semifinals and the final. You'll see every turn of every game live as it happens. Now, Randy, some people not quite sure about our super complicated scoring system. Give it to them.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. The numbers say 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. We saw 0 draws yesterday, which is not a surprise given that there's also a pro point on the line for each win here. You might take an intentional draw into the top 4. That's probably about the only time we'll see a draw here. Now, the real interesting thing is how many points is it actually going to take to make that top 4? There's a lot of speculation right now. If you get 10 wins, you get to 30 points, you should be safely in. 9-4-1, 28 points should be in, but what if you're 9-5? I think that's where the bubble line is going to wind up. Last year we had one of the 2 players on 9-5 make it into the top 4, shaping up to be kind of similar. I mean, if somebody runs away from the field and steals all the wins, the line can get pushed down. But that's kind of where people are looking at. They really want to get to at least 9-5, and they might need a little bit more than that.
Okay, and Ian, what are people playing for here? Tell us about the prizes.
So here at the World Championship, we have a prize pool of $150,000, with $50,000 going to first place, $20,000 to second place, and paying all the way down to $2,000 for 17th through 24th place.
50, geez.
Yeah.
I like that.
And those pro points are such a huge deal, every single one. And you said, Randy, that Martin Muller, 34 points. The 35th would have been worth many thousands of dollars. For players going for platinum, the 46th would have been worth tens of thousands of dollars. And even going, not so much for this field, but the first starting point is silver. Just get there. And that's worth thousands of dollars. So it's not just the money that we're looking at there. All right, well, why don't we take a look at our overnight leaderboard? Let's show you exactly where things stand here at the 2015 Magic the Gathering World Championship. So if we take a look at our leaderboard, here it is. We have our 2 overnight leaders. They are Seth Manfield of the United States and Martin Muller of Denmark at 6 and 1. 3 5 and 2s, Yuya Watanabe of Japan, Sean McLaren of Canada, and the United States, Owen Turtenwald. And then the 4 and 3s all the way down from 6 through 12. But right now, all that is going to start changing, and it begins 1 card and 1 pack at a time. It's time for the Magic Origins draft. Let's hand you across to the commentary booth. Hall of Famer Louis Scott Vargas, from Inside Wizards R&D, Jackie Lee, and first, the Pro Tour historian, here comes Brian David Marshall.
Hello and welcome to the booth here at the Magic World Championships here at PAX in Seattle. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined by Louis Scott Vargas and Jackie Lee. Welcome to the booth, Jackie.
Thank you.
Excited to work with you. Let's take a look at the draft table we are going to be looking at. We've got Seth Manfield and Martin Muller, the overnight leads, but you've got some real monsters at this table who are looking to overtake them. Louis Scott Vargas, what are you thinking about when you look at this table?
I'm thinking about how close Seth and Martin are because they know they're playing each other in round 1. So it would have been even funnier if they were actually passing to each other because then the incentives really get skewed.
Jackie, what are you thinking about when you're sitting down for a Magic Origins draft?
Well, so Magic Origins draft, it's kind of interesting because it's like a core set, but it is also deeper than that. So one aspect of it is like, what are the powerful cards that you open? We have a lot of uncommons that kind of try to tell the archetypes. So we inserted those to try to make it clear what every color combination was trying to do. But on the other hand, like any draft, you need to also think about the signals that you're getting. So if you first pick a 2-color uncommon telling you to draft something in particular, but you're getting signals for another color, I think that most of the time I would just switch into what I'm getting in that other color.
Is there any opportunity, Luis, for Seth to trap Martin from 1 seat away?
I think that even the one person in between is actually enough to make him draft fairly normally. Maybe if you're passing a pack to your left, which has nothing you'll play, then you'll have a slightly higher priority on hate drafting. But Seth also has to play 3 rounds. Yeah. So I'm not really anticipating too much of that, but it is really funny that's something that doesn't come into play in most draft pods because most of the time you're at a draft pod with 4 to 6 or even 8 other people of the same record. So you'd have no idea who you're going to play in the first round. In this case, there's just 2 people ahead of the field.
Right. And you can't afford to get too cute at this table. You see Yuya Watanabe, Owen Turtenwald, Paulo Vitor Damarosa, Pro Tour champion Yoel Larson, Pro Tour champion Sean McLaren. Pretty insane table.
Now, is it possible that Seth Manfield might have a little bit more of an idea what Martin is drafting rather than the reverse, given that he's passing to Yuya, who is then passing to Martin?
Yeah, I think that he has a little more control over that. But it actually does sound like the players are ready here.
Oh, great.
All right, so we are going to send it down to the floor. We're going to be watching Seth Manfield draft. And let us go down to the floor and crack the first Magic Origins packs of the World Championship. Good morning and welcome to day 2 coverage of the Magic the Gathering World Championship here at PAX in Seattle. I'm Brian Dave Marshall, joined by Luis Scott Vargas and Jackie Lee as we watch Seth Manfield. There you see him. He's one of the 2 overnight leaders of this tournament at 6-1. And we are going to be watching him draft Magic Origin pack. Magic Origin draft. Let's see what he opens up. I see a Wild Instinct at the front of his pack. I see a Fiery Impulse.
And Fiery Impulse is pretty widely regarded as just the best common, so it's going to be tough for him to want to pass that, especially since the next couple of cards are something like Wild Instincts, Revenant, which is one of the build arounds Jackie kind of mentioned that prompts you to try to fill your graveyard. And the rare slot, the one that you're most excited to look at, is a Battlefield Forge, which is not really what you're looking to first pick.
And he does take the Fiery Impulse. Where does taking a card like that lead you? Does it put you into anything, or is it pretty flexible?
Well, one of the strengths of Fiery Impulse is that it's just great in any deck that can cast it, which is any red deck. It also is one of the best colors in the format. So you're feeling pretty good about first picking just a good red card, and you're feeling even better now.
How do you feel when you get past Whirler Rogue?
Wow. I actually got past Whirler Rogue in my draft last night, and I was pretty surprised, but it was also late enough that I couldn't take it. I could definitely see Seth taking it in this case. It's quite a powerful uncommon, even gets standard play. But on the other hand, there's also another Fiery Impulse, so he may want to just kind of double down on the signal that he's sending and keep his options open.
He's going to take the
Whirler
best
Rogue,
uncommon over the best common there.
I mean, it's just too strong.
Yeah, Whirler Rogue is just too good. And unsurprisingly, it looks like Paula took a rare there, because that's really the only way to justify passing a Whirler Rogue. So Seth knows that there's no real information on what color the rare is. It's unlikely that it's blue, though, because I actually don't think there's a blue rare that's better than Whirler Rogue.
I don't think there is, yeah. So now we see a Crowan Sergeant, just a very solid creature.
And Seth is leaning towards red-blue here, given these 2 red cards and a blue card, and they're all very high quality. Jackie, did you find red-blue to be one of the more draftable archetypes? Like, how did you feel about drafting those 2 colors?
Well, personally, I found it to be pretty draftable. I don't know. However it ended up, I just tended to open Thopter Spy Network a lot while we were drafting internally. And I don't know. It was good for me because I really like drafting combo-y archetypes. And the ones that are kind of combo-y in Origins are like red-blue artifacts or maybe black-green elves.
Yeah. So Seth's looking at Willbreaker here, which is a kind of controversial card insofar as it takes a lot of work to get going, but Willbreaker plus Whirler Rogue is just absurdly good.
Yeah, that is one of the great 2-card combos. You get to basically tap your 2 artifacts and steal a creature every turn until your opponent kills your Willbreaker. There's a Water Courser up top. Not seeing incredibly strong. We're not seeing any Gear Crafters or Thopter Engineers or anything like that would, back up the Whirler Rogue. But Whirler Rogue's still just fine on its own here. But you're not seeing the staples of the red-blue archetype.
No, but Water Courser is surprisingly good. This card is a lot better than I think people give it credit for, so I think Seth's happy enough to take it here. But one of the reasons that I have myself not drafted the blue-red artifacts deck all that much is that the high picks anyone wants. No one's passing Gear Crafter if they're in red. It's just a good card.
You see a Ring Warden Owl and a Screeching Scob. Not really any premium cards coming around, even mid here in that color combination. Do you think maybe someone is blue-red near him? Or
I think blue is actually pretty open. Blue is one of the weaker colors, at least when I tend to draft it. I don't put a high priority on drafting blue compared to like red or white. But Seth's getting Watercourser, Ringward now. He got past a Whirler Rogue, which Paul is definitely aware of. My guess is that blue is fairly open, and Seth might want to veer into a second color here. He can keep deferring the choice if there's blue and or colorless cards like the Goldforge Sentinel. But if he, at some point, he's going to have to make a choice on a second color. And red, I don't think, is necessarily where he wants to be.
Looks like he took the Goldforge Sentinel to kind of remain open and also perhaps play into an artifact theme.
Yeah, it's very powerful for Seth to go into pack 2 with, he has got the 2 red cards he took early, but other than that, he's got all blue and colorless cards, let's say. That way, if he opens something really, really powerful in another color, he can just go into that color.
Yes, and Origins does have its share of powerful rares, so that makes a lot of sense.
there's Scrapskin Drake, possibly thinking about being like blue-white flyers at some point.
And there was a Thunderclap Wyvern earlier in the pack. I don't think it's very likely to wheel, but if it does, that would, of course, be a huge red flag.
Blue-white flag.
Yes. Guardians of Meletus, which, again, is not a premium card, but if you're drafting an artifact-themed deck, it can do some work.
But there was Artificer's Epiphany in both the last two packs. Is that not a card people are liking in this draft format?
It doesn't really advance the board at all, so I have not been a huge fan of it, despite the fact that it has the text draw 2 cards. So
Right. If anyone is going to be supportive of this card, it's going to be you.
And he took the Fairy
Miscreant?
with 5 cards left in the pack.
Yeah.
which is a good sign that no one else wants them. The problem is Seth's probably not going to want them either.
Right.
And there, you see an aggressive hate draft there, taking Aerial Volley over some playable-ish blue cards, because Seth's expecting to have a lot of Thopters in his deck, or at least he's hoping to.
Right.
He's hoping to have more than 2 anyway. So let's take a look at where he's at the end of pack 1. He's got a couple of red cards, but like you said, Luis, not married to them. He's got 3 now. He took a Majoring Bully in there somewhere.
That card has gone up in my estimation a lot. I don't know how well it tested before the set came out, but when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this card's not great. But it actually does play quite well in this format.
Yeah, it reminds me of a card from, I think it was Born of the Gods. It also had to attack every turn, and it was surprisingly an upside in the format because it masked your decision.
So Seth did take the late Majoring Bully over a Knight of the Pilgrim's Road, so he had a couple opportunities to take white cards, but there you see, he's got all blue cards and colorless cards except for those 3 red cards, which he took first, third, and very late. The signs aren't saying that red is open.
But he's also, he passed that one Fiery Impulse, though.
He did.
To take Whirler Rogue.
I think, pack 2 is where Seth's really going to flesh out a second color. There's a good chance he drafts red even though red isn't open, because that's fine as long as blue is open enough. Oh, well.
Wow. You see a Soul Blade, Jin.
Yeah.
See, now it's good that he stayed in blue in case he opened this. Oh.
Yeah. Seth has the flexibility to take the blue card, but Soulblade Jin's a fantastic card, so he's obviously very happy to open that.
It really doesn't look like there's much else that's, super compelling in the pack. Oh, there's a
Suppression Bronze and a War Oracle, so there are a couple good white cards, but I think Seth's going to be satisfied with taking Soulblade Jin, trying to see if anything else interesting will wheel, maybe like a Veteran Sidearm or something along those lines.
Like Seth, even when I slam a rare, I usually look at the rest of the cards in the pack to kind of see what the person to my right or left will maybe take, and then to guess at what might table.
How often are you correct at what might table?
I don't count on it, but, it happens sometimes.
Well, there's a white card that has made its way into the fray, the Stalwart Aven.
There's no strong mono blue or mono red card here, so Stalwart Aven might actually just be the pick. There's also a possibility of Possessed Gob because, again, if Seth is assuming he's abandoning red, he's going to be blue. Possessed Gob is as monocolor as Stalwart Aven.
Possessed Gob also is a very powerful card. I definitely undervalued it for a while.
Yeah, but in pack 1, Seth didn't see a ton of good black late, so if he's taking the Scob, it's more likely looking like a light black splash. Of course, one funny thing you can end up on is Seth didn't see any black pack 1 that was good, but that means he expects to see a bunch of black pack 2. He could go black pack 2 and
there's
go
an
blue
Unholy
pack
Hunger
3.
and a Cruel Revival in this pack.
So he's getting paid off pretty hard, especially if he ends up taking one of the removal spells. I would expect it to be the single black one, but he might veer back into just blue-red here. He's looking at the Alchemist Vow and the Dragon Fodder.
Yeah, as I was mentioning before, the 2-drops in this format are very important, especially when you're playing a color like red. So if he does want to stick with red, it does make sense for him to take Dragon Fodder here.
Are you surprised at all there, Luis, to take the red card there instead of one of the two, dark banishing effects in the format?
I'm a little surprised. Seth, I think, wants to be blue-red a little more than maybe I would in this seat. But Dragon Fodder is a nice little combo with Mage Ring Bully, and especially in Ring Warden Owl because it's a creature that does trigger prowess. So it's not inconceivable that he would take that there.
So he's got a Turn to Frog, another Ring Warden Owl. Takes the Turn to Frog. Yeah, also with the Soul Blade Djinn.
Yeah, it's a good.
You get to play a creature and make all your
Dragon
creatures
Fodder.
bigger.
It combos on both sides of Soul Blade Djinn, right? It's extra creatures for the trigger, and it also triggers the Djinn itself.
Yep.
So this pack is a little dry, though. Again, it looks like a second Guardians, which isn't. You don't really want to build the Mage Ring Bully Guardians of Meletis deck. So it's possible that. I mean, white is very open here.
Yeah, is that an Anointer of Champions?
Anointer, and another Stalwart Haven, and a Fetid. So Seth could just take his second black card here. Again, keeping his options open. I think he's not super likely to want to go black at this point, but he took those black cards over not a whole lot else.
Yeah, passing Cruel Revival and Unholy Hunger is probably going to signal somebody else who's open into black here.
He also aggressively drafted playable blue cards and artifact cards in pack 1, so I think that he is using that flexibility here to take cards that he might not play if he doesn't end up in those colors.
Yeah, because he's got extra picks, and he can afford to kind of take these detours knowing that not all of them are going to work out.
Yeah, Ram Roller is the pick here.
Yeah, and this is one of the payoffs for drafting artifacts. If it's consistently a 3-mana 4/3, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, blue is certainly open. He's 3 cards to choose from here. What order do you rank those in? Given his deck at this point, Luis?
It's really going to depend on curve. The Ringward Owl is the most powerful, but I kind of like Aspiring Aeronaut in the artifact theme deck. But Seth has a better idea of his curve, and if he needs another 3-drop, Scrapskin Drake makes the most sense. Because these cards are all so close together that whichever costs the right amount is the one he's going to take.
I also think that he already has a Ring Warden Owl, and in addition to the Djinn that he just opened.
Yeah, that leans pretty heavily towards not taking the Owl, regardless of the other two.
This is quite a late Celestial Flare, but it looks like he's staying on path with Bone to Ash.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Paulo was drafting white here. We didn't see a ton of late white in pack 1. We saw like one late Night of the Pilgrim's Road, and all the white going the other direction even further reinforces that.
Yeah. Seth says, none shall pass. I'm not letting anyone just get a late tutelage here. Is there any way you would ever play tutelage in a red-blue deck?
Not if it triggers Mage Ring Bully, but that's not exactly the combo you want to assemble.
There's an Artificer's Epiphany.
I don't mind it here. Seth, given that he's stacked up enough prowess triggers, he might as well take it, and there's a chance he plays it. It's not a huge chance, but given enough good late game, the card does certainly get better.
Not a lot of options here. He could take a Yoked Ox or the 6/6 Wall of Fish, as my playgroup used to call it, it's reasonable in blue if you need that.
I like Stratus Walk over Hydrolash.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to take the mediocre aggressive card or the mediocre defensive card? And unsurprisingly, he took the aggressive one. That is actually a combo with Mage Ring Bully. You Stratus Walk your Mage Ring Bully, make it a 3/3. Also, it just attacks every turn, but it doesn't get eaten by random 2/3 ground creatures.
One of the advantages to being one of the only blue drafters at the table also is that you have a pretty high likelihood of getting a Jessian Thief, which is an uncommon that is made quite powerful with the Stratus Walk as well.
And Stratus Walk even has combos with Willbreaker.
Yeah, I will take your creature and make it flying.
Again, I don't think Seth's locked into red here. He's got 2 good red cards and 2 medium red cards. So if a better option presents itself, it wouldn't be surprising to see him jump ship. He's got 1 good black card in Possess Scob. So if Seth opens a very powerful black card, it wouldn't be too surprising if he just took it and hoped that the blue cards would carry him up to 23 playables.
And if he opened a Sentinel of the Eternal Watch, he could still just say, I'm going to be blue-white, mostly blue, splashing in a Sentinel.
Yeah, he's not expecting getting much white pack 3. Sentinel's good enough that he might actually take it because this is just one of the best cards in the format. Right. And it's a pretty gross combo with Willbreaker. But but if he takes that, he knows he's going to get like 1 to 2 more white cards probably total, which is not exactly what you're hoping for.
Would you pass a Sentinel of the Eternal Watch here?
Well, there's a good chance that neither of the two players to his left are white, given what we saw like pack 4 with the Anointer and the Stalwart Haven. Oh, well.
Oh,
Seth has not had to make a ton of decisions when it comes to his first packs, which is a great place to be. I would much rather open Chandra's Ignition than open a really tough pick. This is just one of the best cards in the entire set. So it firmly cements Seth into red and makes him very, very happy that he's doing so.
well, what are the challenges of building a red Wrath, Jackie Lee?
Building a red Wrath. It's interesting. There aren't that many that we've printed. In general, they tend more towards Pyroclasm, the small ends, rather than Wrath. Chandra's Ignition is variable, so it's a little challenging to kind of try to know how to cost that, given that you have the option of what creature you choose.
I love the gamble element of it, where to some extent, you could get blown out if someone can deal with your creature. Well, there's a Gearport Gearcrafter.
And
there's the Jessian Thief you were talking about. Oh my gosh.
And a Separatist Void Mage. I think that Jessian Thief just has the highest upside of these cards, so that's the one I'd be leaning towards. But Separatist Void Mage is also great.
Yeah, Separatist Void Mage, it looks like an overcosted Mana War, but actually the reason is it does so many things in this format, resetting Renown and enchanted creatures. So it looks like he is going to go with the Void Mage.
Seth might also figure that his deck is powerful enough that he just needs to not lose, and cards like Soulblade Djinn and Chandra's Ignition will win him the game. Separatist Void Mage is certainly better in games where you've stumbled.
There's a second Separatist Void Mage and a Disperse that...
Oh, and the rare Separatist Void Mage.
Oh,
Harbinger
Harbinger
of the
of
Tides.
Tides. Wow. It's a card we saw being played in Modern yesterday in the Merfolk deck.
The flexibility of Harbinger is definitely a selling point. The fact that you can just cast it for 2 mana or cast it at instant speed means even though it's not as good on offense because your opponent's just not going to have any tapped creatures, it still, I think, edges out Separatist Void Mage here.
So I think it's kind of interesting. I think Paulo sent a very early signal to Seth. He's like, look, I'm going to give you a Whirler Rogue, and here's the deal. I don't have to be the blue guy. And then he sent him another Whirler Rogue.
Well, Paulo cannot be a happy camper right now. He's sitting there having passed 2 Whirler Rogues, Separatist Void Mage, and Harbinger. So whereas Seth is just like...
By the way, that's the 3rd Separatist Void Mage in a row also.
Seth was just the only blue drafter at the table, and he's just getting incredibly rewarded.
We could see a Separatist Void Mage come back around the table out of one of these packs.
It's possible, yeah, and which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's going to be a super late Disperse at the very least for Seth Manfield here.
Yeah, and Disperse is an excellent card.
As you can tell, Seth's overjoyed right now.
Yeah, well, that is him overjoyed.
But no, seriously, he has to be feeling so good right now because not only is he getting these insanely good cards, which is just a huge gift, it also means the rest of the pack's going to be great. If you're getting 4th pick Whirler Rogues, the rest of the pack is going to look good. No one is taking your cards.
Yeah, every card you were like, well, maybe that'll come around the table, will now definitely come around the table. Skyraker Giant is the pick here.
Yep.
Yeah, double red is a bit of a reach in his deck with all these double blue cards, but it's possible that he ends up with a mana base that can run it.
It may be a reach, but that is much like the ability on the creature, so I think it's fitting.
Boggart Brute further reinforcing Seth's aggressive plan, though there is a Goblin Glory Chaser if he really wants to get aggro.
He does have some blue tempo cards. The Separatist, Void Mage. Boggart Brute is such a good aggressive card, though. And I think that he is probably looking to get some more 3-drops.
It especially works well with like Separatist Void Mage really messing up their blocking strategies.
There's another Watercourse. Wow,
And
there's
a Thought
Engineer. So all the red cards also that not only are the blue cards flowing, but the red cards
Yeah, somehow
we
the red
didn't
cards
see.
are just Seth is just in a perfect seat. He opened good blue and red. He opened a good red card, got past a good blue card, stuck to his guns, and just is getting paid off in pack 3. This pack 3 has been incredible for him.
He's enthralling Victor.
And a Negate.
There's also a Bonded Construct if he really wants to bolster the artifact theme, but
If he feels like he just needs to, also, I mean, if he feels like his early game just needs shoring up in terms of like maybe trading with a creature to just stem the tide until he can get to his 4s and 5s.
yeah, my guess is that he's not for sure playing the Enthralling Victor. He's going to end up with a lot of playables, which is a good place to be in, obviously. But it is a good card, and there are some matchups where it's great.
He's going to take Smash to Smithereens here.
The old hate draft, the sideboard card. Seth does not want to get any of his artifacts smashed. So unsurprisingly, someone decided that a 7th pick, Separatist Void Mage, was probably too much. So Seth's not getting any of those back 9th, or 10th, or 11th.
Another fairy miscreant, but not gonna play those.
No, there aren't enough fairy miscreants floating around. Also, Seth does not need to take that sort of gamble. His deck is just like a 10 out of 10, so there's really no reason to try to play a high variance strategy like fairy miscreant.
I do like his strategy of opportunistically drafting them whenever there's not really a better card for him.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to approach those cards. Was R&D hoping that those cards would hit at a higher level? Because they haven't seemed to be as compelling a build-around as maybe you would expect.
They're a kind of fun sub-theme, so the idea is that none of them are so strong that they wouldn't necessarily float to you, and if they do happen to, then you can.
Okay, well, that's the draft. So you gave the draft a 10 out of 10 for deck.
Yeah, I think the deck was a 10 out of 10. It was navigated well by Seth. He did have a little bit of guidance in his rares, which is always nice. I mean, it's always nice to have your path set for you, so it's not like he had to make a mid-pack switch or anything, but the results were incredible. I mean, he has multiples of the top 5 cards of the format. He has like 3 of them. He's got 2 Whirler Rogues and a Chandra's Ignition. Soulblade Jin's not far behind, so I have trouble seeing how his deck could be much better.
Jackie Lee, what do you think about the deck? What would your grade be? You can use a letter grade.
I guess I would want to see the curve laid out because that's how I tend to view my decks when I'm building them. But the fact that he has 2 Whirler Rogues and a Soulblade Jin to kind of pump all of his creatures, because that is 3 creatures on 1 card, which is not common in blue, 2 of which are flying. That's just super powerful.
But your concern about the deck without seeing it is that he doesn't have enough maybe at 2 and 3. That would be your fear. Does he have enough at 2 and 3 to get him to those turn 4, turn 5 plays?
And I suspect that he does. He certainly has a lot of powerful cards and removal like Fiery Impulse to kind of catch up if he's behind. But I tend to like to see it.
Luis, what's the likelihood of the Will Breaker making the deck with 2 Whirler Rogues?
I think Seth's going to play it. His deck's really powerful, but Will Breaker is just, it's kind of free with playing all these cards that, like Whirler Rogue. He even has like a Stratus Walk if he wants to run that. So you can even target their creature with Separatist Void Mage, take their creature, then choose not to return it.
All right. Well, you know what? We have another draft that was recorded. We're going to watch that at the wall. We're going to send it back to the news desk where Rich Hagon and Ian Duke are eagerly awaiting.
All right, thanks very much to BDM, Jackie Lee, and Louis Scott Vargas there with the call on a Seth Manfield draft. Well, he went rogue in a big way, and that looks really terrific for Seth Manfield. Remember, 6-1 overnight, and we think round about 10-4, maybe 9-5 is going to be enough. So a 4-3 day today, Seth Manfield will be in your Final Four, and it looks like he has the tools to have a great morning. What about Yuya Watanabe, though? Watanabe, 5-2, the only player other than Shahar Shenhar to win this event. He's the 3rd champion. He's been in all 4 of these events, the only player to do so, and he came into the morning at 5-2, 1 win behind the 2 co-leaders. We are going to take a look now at every pick that Yuya Watanabe made in his morning Magic Origins draft in the company of Hall of Famer Randy Buehler and first Marshall Sutcliffe.